The Beatles did a lot of things right in their career, and one of the things they got really right is the fact that they respected us. They respected their fans. They respected their audience. They cared about what they were delivering. They wanted to make sure maybe even that they over-delivered. They were going to be honest with us. They were going to be truthful. They wanted us to be happy because, they had a relationship. It's like even in the beginning, they had those audiences, those early Liverpool audiences, like the regulars would show up and they'd request the songs and the Beatles would gladly, here you go. This is a great experience. It's like the love you take is equal to the love you make. It was like a two-way street back then. And even when the Beatles had to go to Hamburg, or not had to, like when they went to Hamburg and they had to please some new fans, a new audience back there, and they had to max chow and take some supplements in order to please that particular audience. They didn't forget the audience back home. Well, they wrote letters to their fans and then please don't forget us. So they kept in touch. See, they over delivered, man. Can you imagine like anybody, like a rock star, like sending letters to fans these days? I don't think that would really happen. It just doesn't get any more real and down to earth and lovely and respectful as that, treating us like we matter, like they care about us. It's that relationship. Okay. I mean, they're always delivering the goods, just like with the name the Beatles. They were being real with that. We don't want to change that name. Probably the powers that be were saying, change that name. It's just ridiculous. And the Beatles say, no, this is who we were. We're not going to change that. Forget it. And just like when they went into the recording studio and they were saying, oh, you got to sing it this way. You got to do it this way. And then they have this different drummer, et cetera. They go, what in the world is happening here? This doesn't feel real. This isn't us, man. And so there was a little bit of bad vibes in the beginning, but they did went out with that How Do You Do It song. And they recorded it, okay, but fortunately, it was never officially released. It was just not a John, Paul, George, and Ringo's. It was a Jerry and the Pacemaker song. It suited them, but it absolutely didn't suit, John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And what did Paul say? Paul said, we could not be seen with that song. And John, like in later interviews in the 70s, said, you can't believe that they did this to it. It's like a real record. Can you flip and believe it? They could not be seen with that song. How could they show their faces if they released that song? Just like, say for instance, if you went out for, get something to eat, okay, and you're expecting to have a really good meal, and you're really looking forward to it, really hungry, et cetera, and you order exactly what you want. It shows up, and you go, no, this is not at all what I wanted. What in the world is happening? And you call the server over, and you say, well, what is this that you've given me? Like, this is missing, this is not it, man. And the server tries their Jedi mind trick and says, no, this is exactly what you ordered. No, this is exactly it. You're just going to love it. Just no worry. Don't even worry about it. And you're looking around and you're saying, like, what is happening? Am I in bizarre world? Does this guy think I'm stupid or something? This is really what I ordered? This is not what I ordered. They're trying to rip me off, man. They're trying to sell me a bill of goods. They're not respecting me at all. They're condescending. It's an awful experience. Like, this is not what I asked for. It's like, you betrayed me. You broke the trust. And so you go back home and you're never going back there and you tell everybody else. So I'm sure that the Beatles, like if they had released like How Do You Do It, that same thing would have happened. Everybody said, this is not what we ordered. Man, you betrayed us. Like, what are you trying to do here? And everything would have just stopped. So the Beatles, they were really careful about keeping it real and being themselves, just like with keeping the name the Beatles and playing the songs that they wanted. They want to make the fans happy. Of course, they want to make themselves happy. Of course, they want to make money. Okay, but it was a good relationship. And when they went in the recording studio, they really wanted to produce. They really wanted to be themselves and put it out there and like have fun and give love to and respect, to their fans and the audience. And I'm sure that that's why they toured, because they had a good relationship, but they were this great little band, this little rock and roll combo there. And that's who they thought that they were. So they go out there touring and they're trying to have a good relationship with the audience. And they do to a certain degree. Okay. And then until they don't. And then they go back into the recording studio. They stop touring. They go into the recording studio and they're going like, people are going to forget about us. Like, no one's ever going to see us live again. Like, what is happening? Like, what's happening here? So I think that they went into the recording studio and really tried to deliver or even over deliver, to the fans there by pushing the envelope, experimenting, trying something new. And they gave us a lot of credit, a lot of respect by saying, the fans are going to they'll get us with all these like backward vocals and upside down guitars and deep loops and all this other stuff that they were putting out there, really pushing the envelope and experiment and always being authentic, always wanting to be on the move and not, be the same old thing. You wanted to spice it up a little bit. They were just being themselves, man. In a certain way, they were doing Mac Schaller with the recordings. Okay. And even when the BBC like banned some of their songs, like what I'm the Walrus and Day in the Life, no, you cannot silence that, because the Beatles, like their authenticity was always going to like overpower it, and the Beatles, we loved them like warts and all, because the Beatles, they were always going to be real. They had all these ups and downs like everybody, and they had these heartbreaks, they had sorrows, they have, life issues, etc. And then, of course, they had joys. Okay. And they were just like us. And we could feel that in their songs, like all the way from like In Spite of All the Danger to the end. In every note, just about every song, every guitar note, every drum beat, it was who they were. They were really giving us all, giving us everything. They were over delivering, for crying out loud. I mean, this is why they never wanted to put a single like on the, they never wanted to like, put their single like on the LP. I think they did that for most of their careers. They were always thinking of us. They respected us, like first and foremost. And they gave us the credit for understanding what they were doing. And even if they did stuff like trying things like Magical Mystery Tour and Buying Greek Island, or, trying, substances and things like that, they were just being themselves. Like, and we're not trying to get the fans to do anything. This is just us, being who we are. And then going to India. They weren't necessarily trying to set some kind of a tone or change the world or anything. They were just, being who they were and having these experiences. And out comes the White Album. And they really are being real with us on the White Album. And that really confused a lot of people, but this was still them, going to some other level here. They really got back in touch with who they were. And here they are, they're sharing it with everybody, even if not everybody's going to get it. And still to this day, people go, what in the world is with the White Album, man? It's like, it can be confusing for a lot of people, okay, because it's not regular. You look, here's the White Album, here's the early stuff, here's the later stuff. It stands out on its own, and proudly so. Proudly this like warts and all type form of the Beatles, where they really are showing us who they were and like bearing their soul, putting it all out there, giving us so much value. They gave us even little bits and pieces of songs. They just put it out there. This is us. Here you go. It has value. And I think that's why I love the White Album the most, because they gave so much of themselves, like with the White Album. Yeah, and I shouldn't make an exception, because they're always giving us everything. Whenever anybody is being real, it's like, you can tell. And just like say for instance, that you go to a movie, okay, and you're seeing someone who's like really a bit too perfect or something like that, and they don't make any mistakes and they're really good at everything. It's like, what is happening? That is not real. That is not real life. Those are not people there. People make mistakes, and that's what you get with John Paul, George, and Ringo. They're fallible. Okay, they make mistakes. They mess up and everything. They're just like us, and that's why we love them. When you see somebody perfect like that, it's not real. You can't connect with anybody, and it's all very sus. So for me, like perfection, like even like with the records and the albums, you like all the outtakes and little mistakes and things like that, and the bloopers. Okay, it's like the fingerprints of a human. Like on those records, like this is real, for crying out loud. And I enjoy this, and you smile and you get a kick out of it, and it just seems more like a live performance. Because when you are like at a live performance, anybody here sitting across from me, like strumming their guitar, or even just a cappella, or maybe clapping their hands there with a tambourine or something, just singing me a song, looking me in the eye and telling me who they are, making mistakes and flubs, and maybe, they go up and down with a tempo or whatever. That's a human right there. You can't fake that. Like, the Beatles songs, they were human. They had a soul. They had a heartbeat, and we're feeling that. And that's what, they've loved us with all that. And I really feel that is the highest sign of respect. That's the highest display of respect, the giving of yourselves like completely until you just can't give anymore. Until you have to break up and walk away from it and do the best that you can, like on your own, like as a solo artist. And they're still doing that. And they still respect us. They still love us to be as real and as authentic with us, as they can. Even when they were the Threedles, okay, they were doing their best. It had to have been difficult for them to even contemplate, getting back together. It's like, how can we do that? How can we really be ourselves and measure up and please our fans that way? I mean, their perspective is really different, okay? Obviously, it's very different because obviously we probably would have enjoyed it, loved it, etc. But, their perspective is different. Just like with John, he has a different perspective. He looks back and he says, oh man, we sold out. We sold out. That wasn't us. So obviously, right from the very beginning, authenticity, being real, not selling out, not trying to sell us a bill of goods was very important to all four of them. Not just John, all of them. Like being real. And like I said, just being that person across from us, singing that song, like warts and all. Like not being perfect, being honest. Like being respecting us enough to be honest, to be their authentic selves and willing to show us like who they were. Highest form of respect. Absolutely. And, to me, like that's real love. And and you can't fake that. You can't fake that, especially in a world full of a lot of fake artificial stuff. That's why I think the Beatles just stand out and will continue to stand out, And to me, that's perfection right there. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really and truly appreciate it. And until next time, peace, love one another, take care.